Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon session. My name is Tony Agliata. I'm the Vice President of NACCED, and I'm from Ocean County, New Jersey. This session is called... Thank you. This session is called Creating Employment Opportunities for Special Needs Population. I want to turn it over now to the moderator, Franz Dutze, from the Assistant Manager for the Housing and Community Development Division of Orange County, Florida.
Thank you, Tony. Good afternoon. During our general sessions yesterday, I couldn't help but make note of the fact that we discussed the larger policy issues and how it's going to impact community development as we move forward and how we could be proactive. I also noticed that today we've sort of taken a micro approach and sort of focused in on successful strategies and programs. So in keeping with that theme, we've put together what I think is a very good panel, a panel that's addressing some very, actually using very special programs to address the needs of some very special people within our communities. With that said, I'm going to introduce our panel. The first one to my right, I'm not referring to Tony, obviously. Barbara has approximately 25 years of experience in providing employment services for persons who are disabled. Barbara provides oversight and direction to Project Search, which transitions students from school to work. She is also the Director of Employment Services with Quest, Inc., and works with a variety of employers to assist people with disabilities secure employment. Next to Barbara is Lee Vanderpool. Lee has approximately 20 years of experience in providing a variety of services to blind individuals. She currently is the Program Services Director with Lighthouse of Central Florida, responsible for planning and delivery of rehabilitation services. Lee has a master's degree in visual disabilities and a minor in blindness from the Florida State University. At the very end of the table is Karen Johnston. Karen has approximately 25 years of experience in the field of mental illness as the Executive Director of Task Unlimited. She provides employment, housing, and mental health services to people with chronic and persistent mental illness using the fair weather model of interdependency. Karen has a master's degree in management and human behavior. At this point, I will turn to our first speaker, Barbara Moses.
I think I'm Karen Johnston. Thank you. I'm Karen Johnston, and I'm from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I'm the Executive Director of Tasks Unlimited. Tasks Unlimited is a mental health and supported employment agency in Minneapolis. We've been in operation for about 43 years, and we operate under what is called the fair weather model. We have about 30 lodges where our clients live, and we run a janitorial business, so we're kind of a social enterprise. The janitorial services help self-support the mental health services, and so we don't rely on a lot of funding. So 1 in 17 Americans suffer from a serious and persistent mental illness. 32.4% or 75 million Americans suffer from a mental disorder every year. It's something that a lot of attention is not paid to by a lot of our politicians. 1 in 4 adults in the U.S. are affected by mental illness at some point in their lives. So that means everybody in this room either knows somebody or has a family member or has suffered themselves from some sort of a mental illness or mental disorder. Serious mental illness disrupts people's ability to carry out essential aspects of their lives. It can prevent people from forming and maintaining stable relationships and cause people to misinterpret others' guidance and react irrationally. So they're the folks that might be walking down the street, they might be talking to someone that is not there to the rest of us, they may be talking to themselves, and they get odd stares and odd looks. And this kind of behavior often pushes their caregivers away, and it exacerbates their homelessness. So as a result of these factors, people with mental illness are far more likely to become homeless than the general population. Poor mental health also affects your physical health. So with that combined with inadequate hygiene, because being homeless, it's difficult to get baths. They get physical problems, they get respiratory infections, skin diseases. And in addition, half of the mentally ill homeless population also suffers from substance abuse. So many of our clients come to us with not just a serious and persistent mental illness, schizophrenia, a major depressive disorder, bipolar, but more than half of them also come to us with some sort of a substance abuse issue. And those issues make it very, very difficult for our clients and others with serious and persistent mental illness to get employment and maintain residential stability. Some of the other barriers with folks with mental illness: lack of adequate housing. We all know how difficult it is for many people with lesser incomes to get housing. They have low incomes too. There's the societal stigma against individuals with SPMI, serious and persistent mental illness. People don't want to deal with them. They don't want them living in their housing. They don't want them working on their job sites because they talk to each other, or they might talk to somebody who's not there. They might talk to themselves. They might mumble. That's weird. They don't want those people on their work sites or in their rental units. They can also have difficulties with daily functioning. Sometimes it's difficult to get up. Sometimes they forget to bathe. Sometimes they don't get along with others. So our solution to all of these issues is called the Fair Weather Model. The Fair Weather Model was started in California in the 1960s by Dr. George Fairweather. He came up with this idea. He was working in the state hospitals out in California, and he came up with the idea that, we're really babying clients in the state hospital. We're giving them everything. We're giving them their medication. We're giving them their meals. We're cleaning for them. We're giving them instructions. We're doing everything for them. How is that helping them? And it was a very novel idea, and it remains a fairly novel idea today. There's not that many fair weather programs in the United States, though we are not the only one. So the idea is that folks with mental illness were sent out into the community as an experiment. Hey, let's see what happens if we send them out there, give them a place to live, and give them jobs. Let's see what will happen. Well, everybody thought they would fail and that they'd be back in the state hospital. They were not. A major part of the model is peer support. Our clients live in our lodges with minimal staff support. The big support is peer support and employment. The others in the lodge all support each other. It's mandatory that they take their medications in a group, and it's mandatory that they go to work together. They do their own grocery shopping, they do their own recreation, and they get themselves to work. So what is a robust lodge? Lodge members, not the outside professionals, though we do have staff that assist clients as needed, that make most of the decisions in the lodge. Some of our lodges allow drinking, some of them don't. They voted. It's their decision. Some allow girlfriends or boyfriends to stay overnight. Some don't. It's up to them. Our lodges, the folks there are very, very, very proud. The members are proud of their individual achievement, and they're very, very committed to the group. And our groups are heterogeneous. We mix our ages and our genders, and it works. I recently, about 9 months ago, gave a 40-year job award to one of our clients. And our successes are now some of our biggest challenges. We have, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to be opening a senior lodge for folks that are retiring from the jobs. So group stability is very high. Generally, when people come to tasks, they don't leave. That has proved to be difficult because if our jobs contracts shrink and we graduate more from our training programs, we have to have more jobs. We have organizational stability because our jobs contracts help support our mental health services. We don't have a fragile funding stream in that it's just based on one single funding stream. We do, our vocational rehabilitation services do fund our supported employment, and we get, we do bill Medicare and Medicaid for some of our mental health services. But our jobs contracts, we clean federal, state, and county buildings, and those pay for a lot of the services. So living in the lodge, folks recreate together. We just had a group that got back from Alaska. 6 months ago, we had a group that was in Europe, all paid for by our clients, not by tasks. We do send a staff along, but the staff is basically having a great time with the clients because they're having a good time. They take their medications as a group, as I mentioned. That's a mandatory. There's a morning and an afternoon med group, and they have to be there. If someone is not getting along in the lodge, the client group can vote them off the island. And they do. We work together. So generally, lodge groups work together. So if a group is working at our one of our county contracts, we clean and have been nationally awarded with national acclaim at the Minneapolis Federal Court Building and the St. Paul Federal Court Building. Generally, the lodge groups work together. If they have difficulties, like someone's not getting along, someone is not following the rules that the lodge has set up, they process those difficulties together as a group. And they are a family. Our lodge members do believe that their lodge groups are a family. Many of our lodge members don't have family members for various reasons. They're not talking to their family, or they just don't have family, and their lodge groups are family members. So it's the peer support that really makes us successful. And why do we implement peer support? Because some of us are better workers, so the not-so-great workers support the not-so-great workers are supported by the better workers. Mental illness has its peaks and valleys, and at any given time, somebody has a reoccurrence of their mental illness, and we help each other. We have a program of moms and kids, and if one of the moms gets sick, the other moms kick in and babysit the kids while the mom's recuperating. All of us care for one another, and that makes us better and more able to care for our customers. Prior to joining to tasks, half of the clients never had the same competitive job for a full year. 85% were unemployed at intake. On average, we have folks on the job 7 years. They're making up to $18 an hour, and they give up their disability benefits, many of them. They're earning 13 times higher wages than they were before they came to tasks. And last year, our clients earned over $3.7 million, and they were paying taxes on those dollars to our state and county. And as I said earlier, many of them are giving up their Social Security disability payments, which is saving taxpayers lots of dollars. So our clients think work is important. They love work. They're very proud of it. Jeff says it makes you responsible and provides self-esteem. Tom says it keeps me busy. I like earning money. Barb says it helps my mental attitude, and while I'm working, my paranoia is under control. And Paul says, I go places with the money I earn. I've been to Europe twice. We get a lot of pushback when we have a referral agent call us and say we need housing for a client, and we say, well, they have to be ready, willing, and able to work. Work? What do you mean work? People with serious and persistent mental illness can't work. Well, not only can they work, they do work, they love work, and they're very successful at work. And our clients start working the day they walk into tasks. Our clients, 94% of our clients were not hospitalized last year. Prior to coming to tasks, they were in the hospital 31 days a year. That's a savings of approximately $2,500 a day for a savings of about $15.5 million, which is actually larger than our agency budget, which is about $10 to $12 million. I won't go into Linda's story. I'll just tell you real quickly. That's one of our clients with her child. We have a program for moms and kids. Linda and her children were living on the street before coming to tasks, and she's now one of our peer specialists working as a staff in one of our programs. Anybody questions? Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Lee Vanderpool with Lighthouse of Central Florida.
Good afternoon. I'd like to tell you about Lighthouse Central Florida. We are the sole provider of comprehensive vision rehabilitation services in the Tri-County area. We serve Orange, Seminole, and Osceola County. Most people think that if you are blind, you can't work. I can relate to that, Karen. People particularly think you can't do anything if you're blind, especially if you're the parent of a child who's born blind. How is my child going to develop? How is my child going to be able to go to school? How is my child going to be able to participate in life activities? As an adult, if you lose your vision, how am I going to live in my own home? How am I going to go shopping, take my medications? How can I do the things that I enjoyed? You're so frustrated you can barely function, and let alone work. And that's what we're all about. We provide a full array of services, starting from cradle to grave, and for all phases and aspects of life. Our purpose is to be there for people as they move through the phases of their life. Just like any other individual, our needs change as we get older. For our babies, it can make the difference in a child being able to function and be integrated into a school setting. For our teens, it can make the difference in being able to go to college or not going to college, learning all about the workforce so the stage is set, just like any other teenager. What you can do, even if you are visually impaired, you can go to college, you can go to work. For adults, most of all, to keep people in their homes, aging in place is a big topic this day and age, particularly with the graying of our population. It's in all of our best interest to keep people in their homes and to keep them living independently and safely, to avoid falls and hip fractures. It saves us all money. It pumps money into our local economy when we send those people to work. And if I haven't learned anything in 20 years, regardless of age and vision impairment and other disabilities, whether it be physical or mental, people can work if they're totally blind. It's easier to tell people what they can't do than what they can do. And what we do to facilitate that in our employment services is we help people to get the basic skills they need so they can function independently and safely. Then we move them into an environment where they can start to think about work and teach them how to market their abilities and take the focus off of their disability to be able to market themselves as a qualified candidate first and foremost, leaving the emphasis off the vision impairment, but being able to explain what abilities you have. If I am visually impaired, I can use a computer with screen magnification software or screen reading software. I can transport to work using paratransit. I'm safer ambulating, walking around a workplace than someone with normal sight. Because I've had mobility training, I pay more attention to my surroundings. And workers' comp statistics prove people with blindness have fewer accident rates on the job than people who have sight. I always like to joke and say the job retention rate for people with blindness is wonderful. They're not going to get in their car and drive around looking for another job. They're very focused. We have some of the most qualified, educated individuals, yet our employment rate, and I can say it's the same for all disabilities, is just not optimal. It is unacceptable for us as a society to think that it's okay for 30% of a population with a high level of education and unbelievable skills to not be adequately employed. So enter the most recent service growth of Lighthouse Central Florida. We were fortunate enough a couple of years ago to start employment services so that we could take those people who were ready to fly, who had all their skills and all their confidence, and belief in themselves again and steer them toward competitive employment at or above the minimum wage. We're not just looking for any old job. There is no such thing as a job for the blind. What we do is help people to discover their abilities, to get their job search tools, to get out there and to get themselves a job, knock on doors, market themselves. And it has been a smashing success. Our first year, over 50% of our clients were placed into competitive employment. We will follow those individuals along for about 90 days. Usually minimal supports are needed for someone who's visually impaired. We can do minor assistance upon placement. For the most part, once people are placed into jobs and they are provided with the tools that they need to do the job, and again, that's where we come in, we will analyze a job, work with the employer and our client to discover what types of adaptations might best benefit that individual, because it's all about the individual and the skills and talents and abilities they bring. Employers are very much part of that team. It's a win-win. The idea is that if someone has to go about their job task differently because they're visually impaired or blind, that's acceptable as long as the output for the employer is the same as it is for someone without a disability. We're a heavy-hitting, competitive group of people. We want to get in there and perform just like anybody else. We also have supported employment, and that's something that we have had since 2003, and it is a very successful program. That program is there to serve people that aren't only visually impaired, but also do have other significant disabilities. Mental illness is often one of those other disabilities, developmental delays, deafblindness. And what we do is provide very intense supports to help someone get a job, but we do on-site job coaching until that person can independently perform the job duties and demonstrate appropriate job behaviors. And then we follow that person along for as long as they're on the job. Some of these individuals that we placed back in 2003 are still working. Some of the individuals I placed in my former career 15 years ago are still working. So vocational rehabilitation services for people with disabilities does work. Lighthouse Central Florida, becoming a provider of employment services for people with blindness and vision impairment, has been a huge plus for this local area. And our most exciting recent venture is called Lighthouse Works. That is another side of our house. And what we aim to do is employ people with disabilities ourselves in our own industries. Examples are we have a contact center, and we're providing contract work for vendors and employing people with disabilities to handle that call center work. We also are about to embark upon a wonderful new contract for pick, pack, and ship. And that is going to give other types of job opportunities to people who are blind and visually impaired. Our aim is to employ as many people who are visually impaired and blind as possible, and then to hopefully eventually take that money and be able to use it as a funding stream for our rehabilitation services to diversify our funding portfolio so that we have less dependence on government funding. We have a more diversified funding source. It's a beautiful day at Lighthouse Central Florida. We have wonderful opportunities to come out and see our agency. We have Blink tours, and our phone number is 407-898-2483. A call to that number can get anybody a free continental breakfast and a wonderful tour of our agency and some great experiential hands-on how it is if you're blind, and just what do we teach at this place that can make you independent. It'll take every doubting Thomas and make a believer out of them. The success stories for living, learning, and earning with vision impairment and blindness are numerous. Come out and experience them with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Our next speaker will be Barbara Moses with Quest Incorporated.
Lee's a hard act to follow. How many of you are here from out of town? Are you enjoying Orlando? Great, great. I'm glad to hear it. I'm Barbara Moses, and I'm the Director of Employment Services with Quest. Let me tell you just a little bit about Quest. I'll give you my little commercial. We serve the Central Florida area, like Lee. We serve a variety of individuals with a wide range of disabilities. We're a private, not-for-profit company, and we were started in 1962. Our vision is to be the #1 provider of services to empower people with disabilities, to shape their own future. The basic premise of our services is to assist people to be the very best they can be and to meet their dreams and their expectations. We were founded in 1962 by a small group of local parents. We served 8 people in a small converted store, and today we serve over 1,100 people each day in the Central Florida area. And I'm going to tell you a few of the services that Quest provides. First of all, we have school programs. As you all probably know, children are being diagnosed more often with developmental delays and autism. We have some special school programs that are aimed at those disability groups. We have Quest Kids here in Orlando. We consider it a one-stop shop. We have behavioral therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and social skills training. And we do that from the age of about 3 up. So if you're ever at our administrative offices right up in the middle of downtown, you'll see a lot of really cute kids getting services there. We also have a school next door to our administrative offices, and we are now going through the 7th grade, I believe. Our plans are to have that go all the way through high school. And we also have a school in Tampa that goes all the way through high school. We also have residential facilities, a variety of group homes, depending upon what the person's needs are. You have the traditional group homes where 4 or 6 people live in a home and are staffed. You also have medical, specialized group homes with round-the-clock nursing care, all the way up to people who live in their own apartments in the community and receive supported living coaching. We've worked with county government for many years, and they have been very good to Quest in terms of giving us some grant dollars, especially for our supported living program, because those individuals are living independently in the community and just need a little help in making things successful for them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. We've got a recreational component. We've got a summer camp program. If anybody is ever interested in that, we draw people from all over for that summer camp program. We've been providing that since 1969, and more than 350 campers attend every summer. We've got camping, fishing, swimming, canoeing, arts and crafts, sports and games, a wonderful talent show. And it gives families a break from 24 hours of giving care to their family members, and we are accredited by the American Camp Association. Our vocational services, we run 2 large vocational centers, and we do pre-vocational training and do contract work there. Some of our business partners are Walt Disney World, AAA, Publix, and A+ Tutor. Now, I want to talk about employment services. That's what my bailiwick is. My services include vocational evaluation, pre-employment training, job development, training on the job, and transportation training, which is a very important part of the piece. Most of us drive our own vehicle to work or take the bus, or we might carpool with someone. But many of the folks that we work with do not have a driver's license. They do not have their own vehicle. So we have to get a little more creative with transportation. They have to learn how to use the public systems, and we train them. We placed 64 individuals in community employment last year. An additional 41 individuals were provided follow-along services. And when I say follow-along services, what I mean is we provide support for them. We go in, we talk with them, we talk with their supervisor, we find out if they're having any problems, and we try to help solve those problems. One of the real danger points for people, and it's whether you're disabled or not, is when you have a new supervisor, because you're proving yourself all over again. And we find that through follow-along services, oftentimes we're able to educate the new supervisor about some of the things that might be challenges for the individual, and we're able to advocate for them. We also have a school-to-work program called Project Search, and I don't know if any of you all have heard of that. It's actually an international model where students with disabilities who are in their last year of school go into a business, a group of 12 with 3 job coaches and a teacher, and they work in that business for a year. Our results this past year were that over 80% of our students were hired by the host businesses. So it is a wonderful program. Let's talk about employment and why it should be important to any of us. Lee, I think, and Karen both mentioned that persons with disabilities have an extremely high rate of unemployment. We struggle here in Florida with unemployment rates, and I'm guessing that most of the states that are represented here have had a tough few years. But if you look at individuals who report being disabled and individuals without disabilities, there is a great discrepancy in the amount of individuals who are employed. Persons with disabilities represent the single largest and most diverse minority in the United States. I personally didn't think about them as a minority group until recently, but it's very true. They are a minority group. 1 in 5 Americans has a disability, and 29% of all families have at least one member with a disability. That means in this room, quite a few of the people here probably have a family member who experiences some kind of disability. So it's important, whether you're in my field or whether you're in your field, for you to understand that these services are out there and are ready and willing to work with employers in the community. Why should employers hire people with disabilities? Other than that, that makes them a good citizen or whatever. Employers need their skills. Some jobs go begging that our folks could fill. It may be compliance with legislation or grants. Many federal dollars come with certain percentages of people with disabilities that must be employed attached to them. And so those are important. There are tax incentives. It can create a more positive image for your company. And we'll talk, I want to tell you a few stories. Diversity in the workplace, reduction in turnover. And you say, why would it be reduction in turnover? You would be amazed the differences that can occur in a workplace when someone with a disability is hired and people understand, coworkers understand that that individual overcomes a whole lot of stuff to come to work every day. And they begin to see, gee, things aren't so bad for me. You get a change in your work environment. And creativity and problem solving, universal design for training. Most of us, if we have entry-level jobs that we're trying to staff, We may have difficulty with the training of those individuals. They may not be really good readers. They may not be really good with written instructions. They may speak different languages. There is some very simple universal design elements in training individuals with disabilities or with other issues that our trainers help with. And we've seen employers really up their productivity through using some of these strategies. I want to tell you a couple stories if I can. We were talking about people who have been in their job for a while and who are retiring. I made a visit to a group home that Quest runs, just popped in to see a young man. He's not so young anymore. He and I are getting old together. But to see a man that I've worked with for the past 25 years. And he uses a motorized chair. He only has use of one hand, but he's very verbal, very bright individual. And he reminded me that he is now celebrating 20 years on the job at Target. And I honestly it had slipped my mind. He was the first person that our employment program assisted in finding a job. And I remember when he got that job and we were all crying and all like, oh, is Bill gonna be okay? Is he gonna be okay? And he has done so wonderfully at that job. And the first Christmas that he worked there, I was able to go to him and say, Bill, can you do me a favor? Do you think Target has one of those beautiful, fully decorated trees that we could get? And he got one for us, free of charge. And it was so nice for somebody who's always been on the receiving end of things to be able to engineer giving something to the company that's been helping him. I will also tell you about Bill. He was the very last person who moved out of Sunland Institution, which was here in Central Florida, and moved into, it was Life Concepts then, but moved into a Quest group home. It is a wonderful story. And I'll also tell you this, very creative in terms of his job duties. He was supposed to be a runner in terms of his, taking items from one department to another with his wheelchair. He had to learn the layout of the store and all that. But what they found was that he was a very effective security person because people do not pay any attention to an individual in a wheelchair, and they would be stealing stuff off the shelves. And there's Bill with his walkie-talkie, ready to call security. And I was like thrilled that they had found another way to use him. He's been doing it now for 20 years. So, things will happen that will make you realize the needs that individuals with disabilities can fill in the workplace. So I'm going to tell you one more story, and then that'll be it. A young woman that we've worked with now for 2 years came out of a horrible, horrible home situation, pretty much in the slums of a area outside of town here. She got involved in our transitional program, went to an internship at Shingle Creek Rosen Resort, which is a beautiful resort just up the road. Nothing against Peabody, but it's a wonderful resort. And she had an internship there for a year. In order to get down there, she rode 3 different buses. She got up before 5 a.m., and it took her about 2.5 hours to get to the workplace. Worked all day, went home, did that for a year. They hired her. She continued to do that for another year, saved her pennies. Now Quest has assisted her in finding an apartment. She has one of those supported living coaches that is helping her learn to grocery shop, to pay her bills, and she is in a gorgeous two-bedroom apartment that she thinks she has died and gone to heaven. She's very much a part of her workplace. She's made friends. And I remember the day that she graduated from that program, we didn't yet know whether she was going to be hired. I told her, I said, Chantel, you are going to change your life. And it has. So these things can be very life-changing. And I want to thank you all for your attention, and I want to ask you guys if you have any questions for us, for any of us.
Yes, you're obviously all very successful and creative in the work you do, so I would like you to identify, concerning the populations you serve, where are the existing gaps in outreach or in services or anything at all that you wanted to mention? What are we missing and what's urgently needed?
More of us. and more funding so that we can do it. I would say that in transportation, even though we're in an urban area, transportation is always a huge issue for us. And I would think if you're from a more rural area, it's even more difficult. Lee, do you and Karen have anything you want to say?
For us, it's finding the jobs contracts. As we have 2 training programs where we actually train clients to live in the lodges, and then also job skills training. So as we're graduating more and more clients into our program, our janitorial contracts are becoming tighter and tighter. So we just need more jobs.
For Lighthouse Central Florida, and I think that each one of us would answer this differently. Every agency is unique. We are particularly stretched right now to serve our babies, birth up to kindergarten. And in my mind, that is probably the most critical, because an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And we also want to start some more in-depth vocational services, such as vocational evaluation. We have things we want to do. Of course, it takes money and manpower. I would say, as far as our job placement, we always like to find employers out there that are interested in hiring people with disabilities. And any employer would be encouraged to contact us and come on a tour and see firsthand what we do. And our industries, which is a new side of the house, just as Karen said, and I'm sure Barbara would agree, we are always looking for partners in industries as well, whether it's overflow work on a call center, any kind of light assembly, pick, pack, and ship. We're there to fulfill any kind of need we can and to talk to anybody. We like to evolve, change, and be as diverse as possible and offer as many opportunities to our clients as possible.
What's your current mix of private and public funding, and what public funding is most vulnerable for you in this next fiscal year?
For Quest, the most vulnerable funding is through our Medicaid waiver program. Every year, we go to the state legislature, and that money has to go to a lot of different pots. And we really have to advocate for the persons that we serve that they do get sufficient funding. What about you guys?
For Lighthouse Central Florida, our largest funder right now is the State of Florida Division of Blind Services. Those are contracts, and as I had mentioned earlier, our goal is to diversify our funding more. We want to be less reliant on those contracts. One example is the contract that funds services for individuals who are older blind, and as we all know, that population is rising in our country, and so the incidence of vision impairment is going to rise proportionately. That money significantly decreased. We lost a quarter of that funding last year, yet the demand for those services is going up, and if it's your mother who is at risk of having to be put into assisted living because she can't take care of her basic daily needs, and it's all so avoidable. I personally feel a lot of pressure to reach out and get more funding to continue that level of care, as does our CEO, I'm sure. She's sitting here in the front of the room. Yeah, and you know, she is quite committed to the babies as well, and that is something that is deeply alarming. How do you tell the parent of a newborn who has already endured the trauma of having a child who may have just barely survived, oh, I'm sorry, but your child is going to be on a waiting list? Because developmental opportunities, they can't be put on a waiting list. It's lost. You can never recoup that again. So, you know, prevention of unnecessary dependence and, you know, not maximizing the disability is what we want to do. And so our hope is that the industries will become a new funding stream. We are always grateful. Orange County government has always been supportive of us. Other local municipalities too, United Way too, but those funds aren't as available. Grants aren't as available. The economy's taken a hit. And we are also looking for private donations, any fundraisers that we have, planned giving. So our goal is to diversify.
For us, it's two areas. One is our jobs contracts, as I mentioned earlier. As the feds and the state government and the county government have had to tighten their belts because we have janitorial contracts with them, they've needed to shrink those contracts. So by shrinking those contracts, they reduce hours, which then is a domino effect with our clients. We then need to figure out how to reduce hours and expense there also. The other area is in the supported employment area, which is taking hits both on the state and on the federal level. The supported employment program, which many of us have mentioned, helps us train our clients to get ready for the job. And what that money does is it gives us some money while we're training those people to get them to a point where they can be self-supporting.
And I think that if you're a smart agency, and I think that we represent smart agencies up here, you're looking at a wide variety of funding sources. For example, we have started a new business called Quest Shreds Document Destruction. Our major customer right now is the IRS, and we're looking for additional customers all the time. And, you know, we also partner, as Karen was saying, we have always partnered with the county and done a lot of park cleanup. That did go away with the economy. And what we did was we switched to maintenance of personal homes and corporate properties. So we maintained that group of people, but we just had to shift our focus in our marketing. So, you know, we're constantly working those things out. With the transitional program I have, it's completely braided funding. We have some school system dollars, we have some vocational rehabilitation dollars, and we have some Medicaid waiver funding dollars. So it's, you know, it's a variety of things that we do, as well as private fundraising and grants.
I just had a comment and then a question for Karen. One of the things that we do in Orange County is we help organizations like the ones that you see here with a variety of tools. You know, whether it be public service dollars from our community development block grant to help some of the supportive coaches or some of the vocational training at Lighthouse. But we also look for other creative ways that we can help out. We have taken some of the NSP homes that we've been purchased, and we donated one home to Quest for its independent living. We also gave another home to Lakeside Alternative that does basically housing for group, not really group homes, but you know, people that are mentally ill that are ready to live on their own, like in Tess' situation. So we gave an NSP home to that organization. We're working with Lighthouse now about when they win some of these federal contracts for their pack and send business model. It's going to require them to have a much larger facility that it can actually back up tractor trailers, because this business model is going to really take off. So we're assisting them right now in how to search for grants and how to leverage funds and how to get politically connected with some people that, you know, can win some support for this contract once it comes online. So this is just some of the type of things you can do. One of the things I wanted to run by Karen, because one of the NSP homes that we did give was for a group that does housing for people who are mentally ill, and I will tell you the NIMBY experience that I got from that was incredibly difficult, and mind you, the nearest house was like a football field away, and somehow they figured out what we were doing, and it still was rough and tough, but we were able to pull it off. And when the people moved there, we have never got a complaint, and there was nothing ever wrong with them. I remember one meeting I was at where it was a little vocal from the neighborhood and the community, and one man was just so sure that these people we were putting in there were mentally ill, and they're going to cause trouble, and they're going to do damage to the neighborhood. And of course, one of the directors from Lakeside turned to the man and said, the women that are going to live in this house have all been on programs for over a decade. They're all on their medication. They all have jobs. These are not the people you need to worry about. It is the people that live in your neighborhood who are mentally ill and not on medication. Those are the people you need to worry about.
Absolutely.
Anyhow, it was a tough experience, and I'm curious with your lodges if you've experienced what I just recently experienced.
We have, and I have personally gone through that experience in another job that I was in before I came to Tasks. Because of the NIMBY, the Not In My Neighborhood, for those of you that don't understand the acronym, we tend to buy duplexes, and in Hennepin County, Minneapolis, and in Minnesota, duplexes allow up to 5 unrelated adults to live in those, to half of the duplex. So we try to go in legally without having to go through the Not In My Neighborhood situation. We do have one program that we specialize in felons coming out of the prison system with mental illness. And you can imagine, had that gone to a county board or the city, that could have been a big problem. We have that program in Edina, which is one of the more how should we say, upper middle-class neighborhoods in outside of Minneapolis. We've never had any complaints, we've never had any problems, because that's exactly true. When people complain to us about, well, we can't have all those people living there, it's really the folks, folks are already there. It's just that they're not identified. So yes, we've had those problems, but we generally try to do it in what is legal, so we don't have to go through all the hearings. Otherwise, you just get in a big fight, and it gets public, and it embarrasses everybody.
Any more questions? How about a round of applause for our panel?